I'm Nick Hernandez, and you're listening to the Positivity Matters podcast. On this show, we talk about well being from every which way. Today, I have Annick Janson as a guest on the show. She has been acquainted with positive psychology for quite some time. I hear she attended the second Positive Psychology Summit in Lincoln, Nebraska back in the day. And she has taken the application of well-being science into a place where it's I would describe it as very compassionate in its application, and that is making it a benefit to parents who have children with various sorts of disabilities. And this is happening in New Zealand, it sounds like, is the center point, and has spread to 8 countries and has had some transformative effects in the lives of many parents. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things I've heard about as far as where positive psychology has been applied out into the world. I'll, Annick, pleasure to have you as a guest on the show. Uh, Tell us more.
Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. So, okay, where do we start?
How did you hear about positive psychology?
I trained as a clinical psychologist with a specialty in family therapy and system theory. And there was something that was too, I guess the word today would be deficit based. So the point of focus of traditional psychology is to say, let's talk about what's not working and see how we address it. But when I heard about the positive psychology framework that starts with strength and that starts with increasing our well-being and talking about what about humanity is above the line of the zero line, what Seligman talked about, and what about the human race is innovative and can go to the moon and back and build skyscrapers, etc. That was a very, very important experience for me and a very big connection to the world of positive psychology because my training so far in clinical psychology had been about learning about pathologies, learning about mental health, and how we help people in dire situations, which is very important in its own right. But my interest took me to how do we help people build a situation, make the most of their life. So that's when I heard first about positive psychology. It was a revelation, and I haven't left since then.
Hmm. I'm glad you heard about it.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, there's something like this is what I've been doing, and now there's got a name, so that's great. Yeah.
There's a strength finder that you can take yourself, dear listener, at www.viacharacter.org. I've taken it, and I used to be curious, but I'm no longer curious. Now I'm creative. That's my top one. Hope has shown up, and appreciation, beauty, and excellence, zest, and yours. You shared our perseverance, love of learning, hope, zest, and leadership. I've had love of learning there before. I feel like somewhere with curiosity, I lost both. They're probably lurking just below the surface of the top five. But with yours, perseverance, love of learning, hope, zest, and leadership, how have you experienced those playing out through the work that you do?
Perseverance uh, is for me, I'll take it to the next level, which is Angela Duckworth's work on grit. And that's the kind of the long term, what keeps you going over the long term. And in order to create the movement that we set out to create, it did require a long haul building. But what kept us at every part of the journey is that there were so many people that were so interested and so keen to participate in this movement that we knew we were trailblazing, but we were on the right trail. So that's how the perseverance came to be in this. Parents showing up session after session to our meetings and telling us that they're feeling better and better. They know how to to understand their strengths, the strengths of their children, and that's an important part of what I do. So perhaps a good idea to just say high level now. What I do is I co-created by parents for parents coaching program. As far as I know, we kind of pioneered the integration of positive psychology in the disability sector. Well, let's say we were probably some of the first people because we started in 2015. So most people of parents with support needs feel isolated, stuck, and overwhelmed. Now, next, the program we built is a peer-led coaching program where families guide each other to build real goals and the confidence to achieve them. So parents can move forward feeling capable and connected. They gain the strength, agency, and community to genuinely flourish. So that's in a nutshell what I do. Going back to your question about the perseverance is what kept us going on the long run. The love of learning, which I disagree with you, I think you have love of learning because of the way that you're interested and you want to read more and more about the new topics. So I'll take you up on that. But we didn't want to make a curriculum that would be an on-the-shelf program for the Now Next program. We wanted to co-create it with the other parents. So we engaged in a really long co-design process with the first probably 500 participants. And they had lots to say. They had a lot to say about what's working, what's not working. And they told us right away. So we modified the program as we were piloting it to get the most powerful bits, keep them in and clear away the things that, you go to a program and sometimes you think, the past 10 minutes haven't been so hot. So we cleared those away to just make way for those exercises in positive psychology that are the strongest. So love of learning kept the program evolving to become, and still today, evolving with the latest research and the contribution from participants. So what we did also is create a new model called the Coach and Be Coached. So it's not just a peer support structure, it's a kind of learning infrastructure. It is a series of small actions and questions that put a participant at the same time in the receiving seat and in the giving seat, so that they understand how you can question another person to how they're going to achieve their goal. So you ask them, what goal are you working on? Which one did you choose to work? How do you harness signature strength, your core strength, to achieving that goal? And how can you do it the first step really fast? So that's a methodology that, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of the engine of change in the program. In terms of hope, so I know there is rigorous science around hope, which has been lots of fun to read about and to discuss. Rick Snyder is one of them, but there's many people. And in fact, we use Rick Snyder's instrument to measure the change that participants go through during the program. And hope is more than optimism. It's not wishful thinking. It's the belief you have a future worth moving toward, combined with the agency and the pathways to get there. So you're moving towards the future, but you have those elements that you can test and modify, especially pathways, because you have to try one strategy. If it doesn't work, you try another one. But the point is you keep going forward and to achieve your goals. So we make sure that our participants move in that sense. And funny enough, with the one of the testing instruments that we use to assess impact for our work is the Adult Hope Scale by Rick Snyder, and we're able to show that there is a significant difference between the beginning of the program and the end of the program in hope. So people significantly increase their hope, which is not a topic that's often talked about, I think, in the general literature of change or change management or psychology or organizational science. So I think that it's great that we're able to pinpoint it and to account for change. Zest, our, I think that we should have fun while we're learning, and people take into consideration that children learn through play. That seems quite obvious to everyone, but us adults also learn better through play. So our sessions are, we call it gamified. We do lots of fun things, coloring, pasting, and play, investigating little scenarios and little case studies that we learn. So it has to be fun. And through the fun, parents literally open up and start to experiencing the mind shift that we can see in every one of our participants mostly. And that mind shift means they go from overwhelm and heavy feeling of when they get to our first session, oh, I have a child and I'm really worried about the future of this child, the future of my family. And this is a very heavy situation to be with for a parent, to worry like that, to a change that says, actually, there's a lot that I can do. I have a lot of agency. They discover the word agency. We teach them that they have it. And it's an important realization for them because they're no longer on a waiting list. You know, sometimes people are on a waiting list to see this therapist, that therapist. But because therapy is not the only thing that they need to strive for, that's probably one element of the big picture. But actually, they, as parents, have the most impact on their child development. And there's so much that they can do right here, right now, with what they have. They don't need anything else. And that is a very boost of confidence for parents. And it's great to see that at the end of the program, they come out feeling they have a plan, they have a future goals, they have a kind of a map in front of them. And Zest gamification is part of it. So these are the five strengths that you asked me to describe.
And it sounds like you're kind of leading some of this creation leadership as well. Yeah. Transformative servant
Oh,
leadership.
yeah, so we started working in 2015. I met at a conference a colleague and friend of mine now. Her name is Silvana Mamik. She is the CEO of Plumtree Children's Services in Sydney, Australia. Both of us were moms with adult children who had disabilities and came out of it in a good place. They had a place in society, they had a role, they had it had a level of independence, whether up to your functional level. But so we were thinking, well, what can we do to share this knowledge with other people? So yeah, the two of us we started this together and carried on with other parents.
That is really beautiful. And it's been something that is kind of that peer to peer spirit, something that I've been drawn to for a very long time. So it's I'm going to say awesome and beautiful, probably way too much, but those are the best words that I can think of for it. So it's fun to see. It's fun to see something that's compassionate and life giving. Um, get legs and like start getting out there into the world. So I'm hoping to learn some things with what I'm trying to build here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and uh, I feel like having encountered you in your work that it's going to go probably um, way better than what I've been able to come up with. uh, if that's something that if you're if you've ever had a thought of it going into oh, what would it be, how would it, oh, you know, I think that at the foundation really it's just that hope, like what you just shared. That's really what I see as the essence of it. I I'm guessing you've probably maybe even met the founders of the self-determination theory model of human motivation with relatedness, autonomy, and competency as a basic psychological needs. Um, more down to or more everyday terms, I would say belonging, autonomy, and mastery. And it's like when those don't go well, the way that I've come to think of this is like without the need for belonging being satisfied, we experience loneliness. Without the need for autonomy being satisfied, hopelessness. Without the need for mastery towards those things that we hope to steer our ships towards, a feeling of helplessness, combining into something that we might call languishing. And with the tools like what you've shared, I think it's almost like a rocket ship out of those states into the flourishing side of the equation. So I think yeah, it feels like you've found a turbo boost for getting people from languishing into the terrain of flourishing. So well done. Oh,
It's funny that you mentioned a rocket ship because when we built our first games, one of them was called Pictability. I'll go back to it in a moment, but it is a voyage in space because we felt, oh, the sky is the limit. You know, it's not the limit. It's just like we're out there and we can definitely take off in a rocket ship. Interesting that you say that. I noticed that isolation and loneliness are becoming more and more prevalent, almost epidemic, I think, in the world around us. And I think that some groups of people are even more prone to feel isolated. So I haven't studied them all, but I know the group of people that I work with who have a child with disability or difference or challenges, and they often feel that they can no longer participate in community events because the child would have a tantrum, or people think that they're bad parents because they not can't control their child in between inverted commas. And so when you have people have a child and there is a challenge, a problem, they feel overwhelmed, isolated, helpless, and that's what we set out to fight. Now, the one thing that I set out as a clinical psychologist, especially set out to fight, was the grief model. A lot of people said, oh, yes, people who have a child with disability are grieving the child that they did not, that they were dreaming of, that they didn't have. And I never really liked that as a psychology theory because grief has different stages, denial, and all sorts of stages. And then at the end, it's acceptance. And acceptance is like, oh, well, I'll accept it. But that's not what I wanted. We wanted to create a situation where people would literally take off and think, well, my child can contribute. I just have to make sure I understand how to show the world what awesome contribution this child can have. And yeah, they need a bit of help. My other children who are mainstream can probably, most surely, show the world themselves. Maybe that one child needs a little bit of support in different areas of life. But that doesn't mean that they can't contribute to society, be part of a community, be a good friend, be a good neighbor. So that's, fighting the isolation and the helplessness of people. That's what we set out to do. So the first thing that we talked about, my training in clinical psychology was so that I used to see people come into my clinic and starting the conversation with. I want to build a rapport with them, and I wanted to tell them, what tell me why you're here. So usually why you're here is launches people into a kind of a, this is what my child can't do. And then the other problem is when we have someone in the disability sector that needs support, governments have to allocate money. So the way that all governments in the world do it is one way or another, they want to see the goals that the person wants to achieve, and that's how they allocate funding. So if you and if my colleague used to say, "Oh, I always work with family." It's called in our sector, it's called family-centered practice. Like the family is at the center, not the therapist at the center coming with their theory, but the family is at the center. So people said to me often, I work with the family, I'm family-centered. I always ask them what their goals are for their child. So here lies a problem, because if you ask a person, what are your goals for your child? That's an unusual question. I never had to answer that question for my other children. So all of a sudden, I have to have goals specifically for that child. And basically, that is a question that is very disempowering. So we thought, well, what can we do to get the same information, but without asking that question directly? Because when you ask that question directly, you use the side of the brain that is the rational side of the brain. And the rational side of the brain does a lot of censor. And it says, no, you can't say this because that's not possible. You can't say that because it'll never happen. You can't. So there's this automatic censor as people are trying to answer the question. And oftentimes, if you can ask people who work in the disability sector, when they ask that question, what are your goals for your child? The answer is, I don't know. What do you think I should do? You're the expert. So if that happens, and if the expert answers that question, that's already going in the wrong direction for helping these parents, because it means they gave away their control and their choice to an expert. And that expert does not know their child as well as they are. So that's a problem. So in order to circumvent this problem, we invented a game. And the game is called Pictability. So it's a combination of two words, picture and ability. And we created the game with the parents that worked with us at the beginning. And it involves, firstly, identifying the strength of your child, then taking into account, then looking at a set of pictures. And those pictures can either mean something to you or they can't. So there's a quick brainstorming process. And if those pictures that mean something to you, then you take them up and you write a little goal around them, and you place them on a vision board that has three sides: goals for my child, goals for my family, and goals for myself. In the sector in which we work, the focus are only on the goal of the child. Sometimes goals for the family, and never about the goal for the parent. And yet, how do we expect parents to navigate the system if they are not taken care of also, if they're not nurtured and if they don't flourish themselves. So we think this is an essential component of this process. So we get the parents to look at what they need for themselves and for their family and for their child. And then there's a process by which they decide what is it that they can start with right away. And that means if you can start something right away, it means that is the focus of that is your agency that you're starting to grow. Because you're not waiting for a professional, or you're not, yes, you need professionals, but not for professionals to dictate to you what to do, but for you to work in partnership with professionals. So there's a very big distinction. And and then at the end of the game, you finish with a little action board in which you have three goals, one of each, one for the child, one for the family, and one for yourself, and the very next step that you're taking. That means that parents leaving this session, after 45 minutes, they leave with a really clear plan in their head of what can I do right now and what I'm going to tell the professional when I do see them. But there's so much I can start in the meantime that I'm going to do it now. So yeah, it's been really awesome. We've done, I think, more than 2,500 Pictability sessions around the world. If anyone's interested, they can go to pictability.org and have a look around the workshop and the reports.
Thank you so
So
much for the overview of that. So it's been going since 2015, and I'm imagining that it sounds like the refinements that took place at the beginning set it up for a lot of success. So whether with this or in with your own goals aside from that, like what do you see in the future for this endeavor for yourself? Um, or maybe if not personally connected to it, how, for the world, like, or whatever scope of whatever scale, what would you like the future to look like in what context?
we want to expand to more countries, and the way that we do that is we meet people at conferences, or people get in touch with us and say, hey, how can we work together? And we do one first program in their country where we're going to identify who can be trained to become facilitators in that country. So we've been doing this Australia, New Zealand is where we started, Finland, Canada, Albania, Croatia, Singapore, and now Ireland. So it's taking we want to be global. We think there are many, many people that could be helped through the system, and we want to get to as many as possible. And what we focus on this year is we're doing a randomized control trial, RCT, so that it is something that we can show government and funders exactly that, etc., that this is a replicable process and it can sustain itself. So that's underway at the moment. And the other research that we're doing is because we have the benefit of those 10 years of activity, now, more than that, we are interviewing our early facilitators, people who have been facilitating the program for a long time, to see where they're taking their learning, how their learning is impacting not just on their family, but on their community. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to impact the system and make the system recognize that there is so much knowledge and agency in the families of children who have disability that could be used. And at the moment, the system is not using them. The system is treating them as service recipients, passive service recipients. But they could so contribute to making that change. The system change arguably is going to be a long, long haul one because what happens in every country, there's level of specialization, and then specialists start to kind of ring fence their field, and they, you know, people in government, people in high position feel that they know better what is needed for the system to function. Well, I say, let's look at the evidence. Is the evidence showing that with all the money that's going into the disability sectors in all over the world, how much better are people off? Which I think it's pretty dire because, if you look at the statistics of people with disability who don't have a job or don't have a home, they're very, very, very from country to country, but they're really dire. So the system is not working at the moment, but what we can do from our little corner, starting from the grassroots, is we can create an impact and a reach through the facilitators, the peers. It's called a peer workforce. So peer workforce is the parents and families and siblings who have lived experience. They can guide a certain process. They're not replacing the professionals. Everyone still has their own expertise that they need to share, but the people with lived experience have an expertise that needs to be used. Ironically, in the field of mental health, peer work has been recognized for, I don't know, more than a decade. That's in the field of mental health. So if somebody says once was schizophrenic or had another mental health issue that they managed to overcome, they now can support, guide part of the journey for people who are starting their journey. And that has been recognized and well documented. But in the field of disability, it's not. So we kind of have to trailblaze that part too. So we create this peer workforce in organizations, in countries, and they can carry on doing the impact, growing the impact that an Now Next program can do. And that's working well. But what I want for the future is more. If somebody is listening and wants to try a Now Next program, please get in touch. So nownext.org is where the more information can be found about this program. And yeah, for the future, I think the future is looking good and we're going to expand more and more.
I love the name of your program too, Now and Next. What are the
Mm.
strengths that we have now, and what avenues of kindness can we apply them to for what comes next?
Mm. Yeah, it was
I've
one of early on we kind of looking for a name for this program, and uh, a person that we worked with called Robin Traylor, she said Now and Next. And yeah, we said, yeah, that sounds amazing. And that's really, it speaks to people. What's your next? And your next is exciting. Your next is going to be as exciting as you want it to be.
especially if you got zest.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. We're growing that community. So it's one of the things that parents say is they love the fact that they are able to connect to each other. And they said, if I didn't have a child with a specific challenge, I wouldn't have been able to connect to other amazing parents. But in the course of doing the program and other activities, they discover each other's amazing capabilities and giving. Mhm.
I've got a I've got an idea for thinking about kindness maybe in a way that helps expand it. Um, and that I think compassion usually gets the spotlight for kindness. I feel there's also kind of we could call it a constructive kindness, where maybe a paragon of the inner part of that would be like a mentor, focusing on helping you to see your strengths and turn that into some kind of practical hope. And then, like an educator or teacher, as sort of the helping you engage with knowledge that's helpful to get along in the context in which you find yourself. And then there's a third type, which I think you've uh, spotlighted beautifully, and that is in the now, connecting people with fun right now, and to turn. It feels like you've almost turned hope science itself into a game, or getting into it, building practical hope as a habit for self, and being able to share that with the person in your life that you're advocating for. Uh, I almost, when I see the name of the organization, I'm thinking this sort of playful kindness is helping people connect with fun now. And then the constructive kindness is like opening up better pathways in the near future for self and others. Those are the things that come to mind. But then also, the compassionate part is in the now. And then the constructive type of kindness, I think, can apply towards the reduction, building capacity now for the reduction of more, greater reduction of suffering in the future. And this, your program feels like it's touching on all these things, the playful, the compassionate, and the constructive kindness, in a way that is where they all are mutually reinforcing. It sounds like you've created a generative, virtuous cycle. And I think it's a seed that will have ripple effects that wind up creating a lot of systems change. And the incubation period, who knows how long that will be. But I think when it happens, there will be a lot of people that say, what happened? But it's like, you'll have the evidence to share with people what happened. So
It's interesting that you talk about ripple effect because I'm just writing a paper about it now, ripple effects, because we've been around for a number of years, we can actually trace back not all of our graduates, but some of them. And some of them have gone on create huge organizations of parents with autism, or organizations that they're peer organizations. They recognize they got lots of funding from their government. And these were our alumni who went to create them. We supported them at the beginning. And the reach, when you start looking at their reach, and the compounding numbers are just dizzying. So yeah, the ripple effect is something that talks to me. But I want to go back to one of the things we said earlier, which is what happens in sessions. So people talk about they have three goals, and they have during the sessions of Now and Next program, they have to make sure that they achieve those goals. Of course, a goal can be long term, like my child to be independent, but you have to have, for the program, you choose a goal that's achievable during the length of the program so that you can carry on afterwards. So, it's really looking at the goals and the stories behind this, which the numbers don't do justice. I just want to give you, while you were talking, I just wrote a few examples just to give you an idea of what kind of goals people work on. So, personal goal very often have to do with, yeah. So, one mom, very often, a personal goal is, oh, I'm so unfit. I want to become more fit. So, when when we work in our group, we also tie the group achievement, the individual achievement to the group achievement. So you start a group and say, well, usually group achieve sorry, 80 to 90% of their goals. How much percent would you like to achieve as a group? So when we were in Finland, they said 100%. I said, okay. So there was this one mom who said that she wanted to go for a run. And she got up the last day of the program, got up at 5 in the morning, went for her run before the session, took a selfie of her at 5 in the morning, says, I've done it. She didn't want to let the group down. And there was another mom, and she just wanted to have a nice haircut. Because, when you have not many children, one of them with special needs, you're just running around from appointment to appointment, and something that she wanted to feel good. So one of the other so every session we ask, so did you get your haircut? No, no, no. So on the last session, one of the other participants brought her sister, who's a hairdresser, gave that woman in session her haircut so that the group wouldn't lose a point, so that she would achieve her goal too. Another example, more dramatic, is a family goal of one person, during the family goal, everyone's saying, oh, we want as a family to spend more time together. We want the siblings to have a better connection between them. We want one of the parents to spend more time, individual time. These are the kind of goals that people talk about. And one woman gets up, I think she was in a Bengali traditional costume. She get up and she said, we didn't have time to work on our family goal this week because our landlord has evicted us and given us 3 days to leave our house. On the other side of the room pops a dad who says, hang on, I'm a lawyer. This is not okay. This is you have more rights than this. Stay with me, stay behind after the session, and we're going to sort your landlord out. After the session, they write this mean email to the landlord and say, these are the rights. And well, sure enough, they got 3 weeks by law. Turns out that this dad was a corporate lawyer. I don't even want to begin to imagine how many hundreds of dollars an hour he charges. But during this session, there was no talk of money. It's because it's two parents who are trying to do something about what matters the most to them is their children. And that bond between the parents just made that possible to help someone who does not know the legal hurdles of the situation, and was able to just have enough time to look for another house. But one example that I really like is the one in Singapore. That's a mom who said, I just want to have 10 minutes on my own before everyone gets up in the morning, just a cup of tea in silence. And she did that. I met her a year later. There was a reunion in Singapore of the parents, and I didn't know that because I wasn't the facilitator. But her project at the time I met her was she's creating an educational endeavor to educate women in India to be financially independent. Now, this is a big deal to be financially independent in India as a woman, because many of them are not. And it's a situation where women often get trapped into a situation where they can't get out of because they can't earn money. And I didn't know about her first goal, but I said, oh, we just talked about the goal, and I said, oh, what was your first goal? In the program, she says, oh, I just want to have a cup of tea before. So, the goal starts with a cup of tea, and it just, once this is taken care of, then there is more space for everything else to happen. Things just pour out, the energy pours out of parents because some of the early blocks are being removed. And I thought that was a really good story to share.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah.
It's in those stories that we really understand the power of things, isn't it? not so much in percentages, and we need both, but it's really nice to hear some of the this is the human condition.
I think in hearing your stories, there's been a vicarious effect, and my storytelling abilities have gone up 2.7% already.
Oh, in what way? Tell me.
I'm just being silly. Humor is one of my top strengths.
Mm.
That's my meager attempt to express that with uh, what I really identified with when I saw that in my top five was in parentheses, it had playfulness. And that's kind of been the trajectory. I think you kind of brought out with zest, like you mentioned, fun. And I guess that kind of is a good, I think of that now, since you said that, kind of as a pairing, like the playfulness, maybe occasionally tinged with humor, as the initiating factor, and the zest or fun as the hopefully the result of the playful endeavors. And the yeah, like think hope is a good complement. With it goes well with zest, and the way that it seems like those two pair well together is uh the energy of which you speak. If you're in a group where someone does have that zest, maybe it's been suppressed because not knowing how to access it. I'm guessing like you're either building the capacity for zest as you help people experience this, or I'm guessing you're probably finding people that have it, and getting it, helping them bring it online. But I really like that, that you're focused on story and the energy, the collective energy that um, gets activated through these approaches. And it's clear that you've got 10 years of experiencing this with the 2,500 or so participants. Um, Quick question: are these 2,500 facilitators or people that have gone through it? What's the numbers like, but with facilitators to participants?
So this particular number that I quoted is so Pictability is the first session that we do in the Now Next program. It's the session that through the game we look at what our vision is and what goals we want to work on, and we bring it down to 3 goals. And that could be a standalone session that organizations use. The organizations have trained Pictability facilitators as professionals and or as parents. So this, what I was mentioning before, is we had 2,700 something Pictability sessions with parents. The Now Next program, I don't really have the numbers in my head, but I think that it's close to, so I think we've done, I would say, between 200 to 300 groups, something like this in the world. 250-ish, I think. So, each group is probably 16 people, more or less. So that would be the numbers. Yeah. No, there's lots of numbers there.
250 groups, 15 people average that are facilitators now or capable of facilitating it.
No, so not everyone becomes facilitators. There's some people who do the program and they say, yep, this is great. I'm just going to go on and apply the program in my family. In terms of facilitators, we probably trained almost 100 facilitators in the world to facilitate the program. But, people's lives come and go, the people change location, etc. So I would say we probably have 50 active facilitators at the moment.
50, did you say? Or 1 5,
Yeah,
15? Probably about 50.
50.
50. Okay.
Hmm.
That seems like a pretty
Yeah.
good, pretty good ratios. I like it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
talking about the importance of storytelling and then doing a deep dive into the numbers immediately thereafter.
Yeah.
um, Was this person that you mentioned in Singapore that is doing the work on financial independence in India with women? Is that someone who was a facilitator or just someone who went through one or more of the other programs or
She became a facilitator after she did
Hmm.
the program with us.
As we're speaking, I'm envisioning maybe someone's done this already, but various groups of sometimes people don't find out about their neurodiversity or neurospiciness until later down the road after childhood. And if there were people that were interested in sort of applying some of this with each other, um, is someone doing that, or could do you think this could be modified in that way?
Doing what?
Adults that get diagnosed as adults with various neurodiversity issues,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
that weren't recognized as
Oh yeah.
children.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I forgot to mention that we have a program for youth. So there is a predictability kit for adults and young people and adults, and it's a similar process of choosing goals, but it's kind of different because in the predictability that you do as a parent, because you have a very young child, you're speaking on behalf. So the process is a little bit different. Whereas in the kit where you do your own journey, you are given more directions as, tell us what it feels like to be, what are your strengths? How do you identify them? How would you tie them to goals, etc. So it's a little different. But that came about because the parents who had done the Now Next program with young kids, their kids grew up and they said, I want my child to also do this predictability now that they're a teenager or they're young adults. So we developed that one together with them. And it's more recent, one of our programs. And I think we have done it with 30 different groups of young people. Yeah, 30. 30. And but it's catching up, and it all depends. We need depends on the funding that we get, depends on the government that we talk to, and the organizations that we talk to. In New Zealand, for instance, we have an organization that is called CCS Disability Action Waikato, who's just supporting us like really in an amazing way. And whenever we have a new idea, an innovation that we want to apply, we go to them and if it fits. So they also have a large Maori population. So we did some co-design with Maori participants, which was very fun. And they contributed the images from their marae and their traditional images, and that's really, really good because we obviously, when people view those images, we want them to recognize themselves in the images. So we wanted it to be congruent for Maori population also. But funnily enough, the Pictability kit, because it's so visual, it also is very suitable for people whose English is not their first language. So culturally different linguistic. And that's it's another important feature of this, that you don't have to be like fluent in English to understand this and to make it work, because you can write the goals in any language. The kit is yours and you write your own goals in your own native language. So that's my pet. I have a collection of goals written in all different languages.
Hmm,
One day I'll do a film with those, which is
I
yeah.
love that. You jogged another thought with mention of Maori and New Zealand, and that I believe there was a play researcher, one Brian Sutton Smith from New Zealand originally, that was, from what I understand, a presenter at the first Positive Psychology Summit. I'm wondering if there were any people that spoke on play at the second Positive Psychology Summit, and um, if, like, I think play just in and of itself, it kind of gets a little bit of recognition through the humor and playfulness and elements of the via. But have you seen the play science sort of over the years since you've been um, acquainted with positive psychology, or what does the future of play science and positive psychology look like, or what could it look like?
Yeah, I think they're very connected. I'm not aware of the research that's going on in that specific field. So, but I would say intuitively they would be connected. So, because the playing situation is provides an environment where you can trial different ideas and different behavior. You know, you can be whoever you want to be in certain games. So you can experience being trying a new applying a new strength to a new goal, for instance. And then you could have a scenario that you run as a prototype with the people around you in the workshop that that would help you, and then you would see the possible ending to a trial, for instance. So I think that there's definitely a good connection there, but I don't know any more specific research.
Thank you for reflecting on that for a bit with me. Has anything come up that we haven't talked about that you would like to share about?
What I'm right now, what I'm thinking about is how to make sure that this movement can expand in other parts of the world internationally without losing the peer-led integrity that made it work in the first place. So we're working on the scaling models in the different countries. That's kind of front of mind with me because we don't want to think that this works because of the specific facilitators that were there, or because I have zest, or because other people have other qualities. It has to be something that is standalone and that actually is replicable, which obviously with the years I facilitate directly more and more because I have other work to do in the research. So it's good that there are, there's different facilitators trialing it, and they use their, we part of our training is making sure that they are aware of their strength so that they can bring their strength into the situation. So I would say that what makes this specific is that we use some universal change elements, universal human characteristic nature, such as strength, such as the desire to set goals and achieve goals, you know, the dopamine effect that when what happens when you achieve a goal. So the we basically used known element from those fields, positive psychology, leadership, building, gamification or play science, and we just put them together and they seem to work well. So that's what I think is interesting about this.
I've got a contextual idea that comes to mind that I'm wondering if it might potentially work in tandem with something like what you've developed, and that is in thinking about the psychological needs of belonging, autonomy, and mastery. It feels as if the goals thinking part corresponds quite nicely with the need for autonomy, the mastery part with um, the uh, strategy or the pathways thinking element, and then the need for belonging could potentially be what I'm envisioning is like a small group where people basically just share about their um, practical hope building endeavors, and in that small group kind of context, the uh, maybe some of the need to belong could be satisfied through that itself. So the most pared down model of this idea that I've been able to come up with is to uh, get with a couple friends or a couple strangers and start off with a question like, what went well lately? And then let each person share. And then that half hour will fly by. I guarantee it. The second
Mhm.
half hour, the second question could be something like, what is a goal you'd like to work on? And that's a general question that can be opened up into what are the strengths and values that are informing the goals that I might be setting? What are the goals I'm setting? And what are the pathways that I'm contemplating? And then if someone were to come back the following week, their what went well lately might be how did their goal pursuits go? And so it's meant to bring people into a meaningful experience with each other in the most pared down way possible to get at the essentials of hope science and social health maybe, and the inspiration has been in part positive experience with 12-step recovery programs, but then also just great delight learning about and trying to take positive psychology out into the community, and then trying to envision something in between where set aside the idea of recovery and just looking at positive mental well-being as something that can be built for its own sake, similar to physical strength. It's like we all know there's gyms out there, and we all know there's lots of things we could do. But I think positive mental well-being might be the same or some element of it. And so what I'm envisioning is, instead of like in AA, it's the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And for whatever this thing might be, I've been calling it a hope sharing circle. It would be something like the only requirement for membership is a desire to flourish. That is
Mhm.
the thing that I've been doing some version of that since 2011. And it's been kind of feels like kind of safe harbor to sort of put ideas out there, to say them out loud. And uh, there's people can bring whatever they like, whatever their own goals are, whatever the values are that are informing those goals. um it's been personally really very generative. It's been a lot. There's been absolutely zero research on this and zero funding. But as you were
Mhm.
sharing about what you're up to, I can just kind of envision this sort of being something that just gets the idea maybe of this practical hope and goals thinking and pathways thinking just sort of into the consciousness of people and communities, and then in as a general thing, no suffering, you know necessary to build your positive mental well-being, but then in raising awareness about it, it feels like that might help, um, in the particular context where you're focusing on reaching parents with children with disabilities, where maybe it's even stigma, maybe higher barriers to being able to access it. So my thing is a Trojan horse to weaken people's resistance to positive mental well-being being a thing, which opens the door to being able to talk about mental health, neurodivergence, and then yours is to maybe follow it with something that works, where there's great stories of it working, where there's great evidence of it working, and I'm looking to hearing more stories and seeing how the the RCT goes. And whatever I can do to help support your endeavor, I'm excited to do. I'm excited to get this episode out to the world. And if people want to learn more, I know you've mentioned some of the websites along the way, but let's do a summary of where people can go.
So the Pictability game as a standalone is a game that will allow people to, in 45 minutes or so, create an exciting future for themselves and goals that they can start working on. So that's pictability.org. And the program that takes Pictability's goals that allows people to work together, create community, and achieve their goals together, a bit like what you were saying, flourish together, what well went lately, all these good questions that you're asking. That program is the program called Now and Next. So the website is nowandnext.org. And so both of them will lead you to me and to the people that we work with in the world. Thank you so much. It's been a really great conversation. I wish you good luck in your endeavors in creating those powerful communities with so much playfulness and so much talking about flourishing. And this is what we need now.